So this video has something for everyone. If you love Zwift, stick around. If you love park runs, please also stick around. Things are about to get really spicy. I'm also just going to quickly say that I'm stood in my garage, a very messy garage, because my camera rig from last week's setup, where I was filming the Zwift ride for the Zwift ride review video, is still set up in my garage, and I can't be bothered to move it into my studio, aka my office. I've done a full-on Joe Wicks where I've moved everything that I thought was an eyesore behind me, behind the camera. Anyway, I'm waffling. Getting back to the video. Back in January, I made my New Year's resolution video where I outlined all of the stuff from a fitness perspective that I want to achieve this year. Two of those things was achieve an FTP of 300 on Zwift and run a park run in under 25 minutes. But the only way I'm going to do this is if I train and possibly lose a bit more weight. As Lazarus Lake once said, who was the organizer of the brutal Barkley Marathons, he said, "You can't accomplish anything without the possibility of failure." I ended my last Zwift video 2 weeks ago now by failing at my attempt to get myself promoted back into category B, having been demoted on the back of a long break through the summer. We've all been there. In the process of failing miserably to get myself promoted back into B, I accidentally hit my 300 watt FTP target, which mid-effort I wasn't even thinking about. I went into this attempt with no intentions of going after a 300 FTP because I thought it was miles off. I suppose the frustration of knowing that I'd failed to hit a new 5-minute PR spurred me on enough to finish the climb at a fast enough pace, holding enough power to hit that magic number. However guys, and this is a bigger however, only a few days after this effort, I joined a new Tribe RC group workout because I'm trying to turn over a new leaf by doing workouts. And while using erg mode, I got the dreaded spiral of death on the trainer. For anyone that doesn't know, the spiral of death is when you allow your cadence to drop so low that when you're using erg, the system then increases the resistance to make up for the fact that you've got a really low cadence until it's almost impossible to turn the pedals anymore. In my attempts to rectify this by increasing my cadence, I pulled something in my left knee and I felt a sharp pain almost immediately. But instead of stopping there, I decided, in good old-fashioned Ryan's common sense, I decided to power through, definitely making it significantly worse. Now, I learned a very, very valuable lesson from this massive error in judgment. I should just stick to racing. You know, it was my first attempt to really do a structured workout and I'd go and injure myself, but yeah. So joking aside, and to cut a very long story short, my knee was rocking and rolling for days afterwards. I attempted to rest it, however, had already signed up to and competed in 2 races within a 6-race racing series on Zwift. There was a lot of racing in that sentence prior to my erg related injury. Basically, I'd signed up to a racing series, done 2 of the races out of 6. Now, normally this wouldn't bother me. However, I had somehow managed to finish on podium in both of the first 2 stages. So stage 1, the TT, and then again on stage 2, which was the flat scratch race. But of course, I did what any sensible athlete would do. Did I just call myself an athlete? I did what any reasonable person would do in this situation. I popped 2 ibuprofen and jumped immediately straight back on to the indoor trainer for race number 3. I'm going to say this, excuses, you know, I've got a niggle in my knee. And if I wasn't doing so well in GC, I probably shouldn't say this on camera. If I wasn't doing so well in GC, I might have given this a swerve because I really do need to rest it. However, I can't let this slide. It's not very often I do this well in races, especially series races, because I don't do series races very often. And considering I'm not doing ZRL this year, I want to do well. Anyway, I'm going to get on the bike. Now, luckily for me, the race stages were every Saturday and Sunday evening, meaning I had 7 days in between it. However, there have been 3 days since my last disastrous erg-related mishap on Zwift, so I was really praying for a miracle at this point. The race kicked off. Every race in this series was a mass start event, meaning the A's set the pace while everyone, without a plan, myself included, attempted to hold on for dear life until we're eventually dropped, and then we form our own pacing groups. And because I had a GC to defend, I went off like a rocket with the A's. My aim was to try and get over the first of the 3 climbs with the leaders. That was my minimum hopes anyway. The climbs aren't that long, so this wasn't unrealistic. I've done it before, but they are steep, with the second one peaking at 22%, which is if I'm honest, mental. I knew I wasn't hanging with the lighter A's on the second climb, but if I could just make it over the first one with them, then I knew I was golden, because I could then hold a pace that kept me away from the rest of the chasers. So I hit the first climb, worked as hard as I could. However, I could feel my knee wasn't 100%, but I tried desperately to close the gap and ignore the pain. I went down the other side and I tried to power into the second climb, but I just had no power in my left knee. And then towards the top, I unfortunately felt it go again. I haven't got it. This time with a really, really bad shooting pain up my leg. However, instead of stopping, and I don't know why I didn't stop, I tried to power through. And now obviously this was a big mistake, as I had to work really hard just to remain attached on the flat. And then as we hit the third climb, the pain in my left knee was unbearable, and I just had to watch as the group, doing only 3.5 watts per kg, slowly sail away from me. Normally I'd have more than enough left in the tank to be able to hang with them at this pace, but not today. I eventually got to the top, but my knee didn't belong to me. I knew I couldn't keep turning the pedals, let alone finish the race for much longer. And I eventually, reluctantly, had to concede defeat. It's gone. I can't finish it. It's completely gone. I just felt it go. Oh man. I'm just having a nightmare. I just get over my chest infection. I start getting treatment for my shoulder and anti-inflammatories, which has helped. And now I get a really bad knee injury. It's really hurting now. I shouldn't have done that. What an idiot. Even I knew powering through now was kamikaze for any future I had left on Zwift this side of Christmas. Now this isn't the end of this video, so don't go anywhere. I took a whole 7 days off from any form of exercise. If you've been a long-term viewer of my channel, then you will know how unusual that is for me to take some time off from exercise. I iced and rested the knee for quite a considerable amount of time, and then by the end of the week, it was starting to feel a lot better. I had a lot more movement in it. Now, because I had caused this injury by cycling indoors, I didn't want to make it worse by again cycling indoors. So knowing that I'd already achieved my Zwifting goal of a 300 watt FTP, I decided instead to tackle my other target of a sub 25-minute park run. Running uses different muscles. At least that was my rationalization for this ludicrous decision. It's okay, guys. I think the train's running a couple of seconds late. You may have noticed, it's a bit windy up here, you may have noticed I'm wearing some new headphones. Now I will say, for the benefit of this video, I have already run a sub 25-minute 5k, but that was on a treadmill. And anyone that runs knows that hitting a pacing PB on a treadmill is slightly easier than doing that IRL, as you don't have to deal with other people, mud, gradients, potholes, or tree roots. And the treadmill does all the work for you by pacing you. I don't have to pace myself, which I'm really bad at. I normally blow up within the first few hundred meters. So I rocked up at my local favourite park run with one aim in mind: run a max effort 5k and completely, definitely 100% ignore the pain in my left knee. Okay, good morning guys. Chelmsford Park Run. My favourite one. Well, it's my favourite because it's the closest and I can get it by train. I'm still going after my sub 25. However, this is where I get my excuses in, and this is not me projecting negativity. However, I haven't run in over a month. I am nursing a small injury. It's just I've just pulled or strained a muscle in my knee. Nothing serious. I've been off the bike now for 7 days to give my knee a break. Isn't hurting at all. However, I just did a warm-up run. I actually did a warm-up run because I thought, well, I'm getting injuries now, guys. I can't not do warm-ups. I do warm-ups on Zwift, and now I'm doing warm-ups at park runs. What's next? I'm going to be buying one of those vest tops. I will say, I've got new headphones. I mentioned it already. I've got new headphones. These are the Nank bone conducting, not sponsored, but I've got the Nank bone conducting headphones. I've never worn bone conducting headphones before. Now, I've gone through a plethora of headphones. I mean, tens of them. I've had more Apple AirPods, iPods, whatever they're called. I've had more of those small bud earphones than I care to think about how much I've spent on them. The small Apple ones, we all know what they are. They fling out, even just by looking at them, they just drop out, let alone running. I don't know why I run like that. The ones that go over my ears, obviously, are quite heavy. It's all right on Zwift, no one can see me. But at a park run, I'm not quite so sure about that. But these are bone conducting. I've never tried bone conducting. They go around the back of my head. They go around the back. and they fit over my ears. Anyway, I'm giving them a go today. I've only ever used them on Zwift. I've used them I think 3 or 4 times on Zwift. They're really loud. That was the other thing about the other headphones. The other headphones I've only ever used, they're when I use them, they're not very loud. Okay, park run. Sub 25 I'm going for. Wish me luck. Now, I know this is absolutely a bad idea. I'm not advocating running or cycling injured. You do you guys. I don't know why I'm doing this. Quite possibly because I'm going crazy not exercising at home and I need to do something. And I've already rationalised it by the fact that I use different muscles when I run. I've always said this, especially in my early videos, don't copy me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a fitness expert. I'm just a 45-year-old bloke trying desperately to make the most of his new fitness freedom. So with Thunderstruck blaring away at max volume in my new Nank bone conducting earphones, not sponsored, I fly off the start line quietly praying in my head, along with the lyrics to Thunderstruck, that I'm going to achieve this. The good news is, mainly due to the crowd, I don't blast off the start line like I normally do, and I start at a very reasonable, for me, pace of 5 minutes per kilometre. I try desperately not to look at my watch because in reality I know a sub 25-minute time, partly over wet grass and on mud and on a rainy day in September with an injured knee, is a big ask. My existing best parkrun time, and still my 5k PR, not including the treadmill, is 26 minutes and 49 seconds. It was a time that I set at the end of June this year, so only 2.5 months ago now. And it's still a time that I'm really proud of. At kilometre marker number 2, I was now running a perfect 5 minute a kilometre pace. However, I now knew I had to not only hold this for another 3 kilometres, but I also had to dig in and speed up towards the end to ensure that I finished below with a buffer, below 25 minutes. However, and this is another big however, I still have to shave nearly 2 minutes off my existing max effort PR. It's been raining a lot recently, the ground is very wet with some sections over grass, and I'm running with a knee injury. Things are not in my favour, and if I was a betting man, I'd bet against me. But I never think like this when I go into running or cycling events. When I go into them, I'm full of confidence for some reason. I think it's one of my superpowers. I'm also absolutely dying at this point. My breathing is outrageously loud, and I now have to climb what feels like Everest, but in reality it's just a small bump when I start to drop my pace, made obvious by the fact that many people are now starting to pass me. Then thankfully Daddy Cool starts playing in my ears. Music makes all the difference. It was perfect timing, and I find something primordial deep down that allows me to increase my pace. I hit marker number 3, and with only 2k left, I now need to get my average pace under 5 minutes per kilometre across the entire run. I get overtaken by a guy pushing a buggy. That always feels good, and then a guy out for a brisk walk with his dog casually passes me too. I'm now completely blowing up. I get back onto the path. I decide with just over 1k left, enough is enough. As Pavarotti once said, it's now or never, and I step it up into top gear. Around the last corner, I can see the finish line. I have absolutely no idea of the time, as I am intentionally not looking at my watch again, and I sprint for the finish line. Always, guys, always sprint for a finish line. And I finish. I crossed the line, my knee held out, I have no pain, unbelievably I have no pain, which is good. However, did I do it? Did I finally achieve my second 2025 target of running a park run in just under 25 minutes? How if I have my barcode?
There we go, and you're talking. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
And you, thank you. The answer is yes, guys. The answer is yes, I did it. My new all-time parkrun 5k PR is 24 minutes and 49 seconds. Sub 25 minutes. I smashed my old PB by exactly 2 minutes dead. That's crazy. It's crazy how things sometimes work out like that. I can't believe it. I've done no run training for the past month. I've been off Zwift for over a week. Sub 25 minutes. I'm also going to say in this video, you're not going to see any Zwift racing videos from me for a few weeks because I'm going to rest the knee for at least another 7 days until I attempt Zwift again. And even then, I'll be on a light zone 2 workout training schedule. No racing for me for a while, unfortunately. I probably shouldn't say that, as I'm probably going to lose subscribers by saying that. But in reality, I'm really starting to feel my age because of my knee until I ran this park run. And now, guys, I feel invincible. I'm also in the process of another project. project, which is why the garage looks the way it does, as I've got big ideas and plans for my pain cave. So you'll have to watch this space. Teasers. See you next week. 24:49, guys. Unflipping believable. Thank you for watching.